In this video, we're going to print some things to the screen to get our first real taste of programming. The Java Shell tool, or JShell as it's referred to, is the tool we'll be using to achieve this, and is the one I talked about in the previous video. Be sure to watch that previous video if you need a recap on how to access it for your operating system. For best results for this course, make sure you follow along as closely as you can, typing the code segments I'll be typing into your own JShell session or editor window and performing the operations that I'll be demonstrating. JShell is a sort of playground to test code segments. Integrated development environments are great tools which guide both new and experienced programmers, simplifying the debugging and improving programming standards. But nothing beats learning from your own mistakes and figuring out how to get a line of code to work when it wasn't working before. This emulates real-world problem solving, and you'll find when you type in your own code, you'll be making all kinds of typos or omitting or overlooking some characters that are required. This is the best way to learn and pick up all the nuances of any programming language you're learning. If you do encounter a mistake on your own, pause the video, try solving it on your own, and if that doesn't work, remember the working code segments are always available in the resources section of every video. In addition, I'll be trying to talk through and demonstrate some of the most common mistakes we all make in Java. If you're making these mistakes and correcting them on your own, you won't forget them easily. If you're like most programmers, figuring out how the pieces fit and seeing the result of the code working after a bit of a struggle is the best part of programming. Coding is a lot of fun, and I promise you'll feel the same way as we progress through this course. Alright, so let's get started. It's always been a tradition when you're learning a new programming language to create a simple program that outputs the text, "Hello World." This lets us test all the parts that are necessary to create a successful program with very little investment of time or knowledge of the language. It's the first step, and honestly, even after many years of programming, I still get that first feeling of achievement when I've accomplished this step in a new language. If you can print "Hello World" to the screen, you're on your way to bigger and better things. Let's do that now. First, I'm going to open a command line window for my operating system, and from here, I'll invoke the Java Shell tool. JShell. I'll press enter. JShell is running now, and from here, from the JShell prompt, we can type in our first code segment. Remember to type in the following code exactly as you see me type it. System.out.print, opening parentheses, double quotes, "Hello World," closing parentheses, semicolon. This line of code is called a statement in Java. Let's pause for a moment and talk about statements. So what is a statement? It's a complete command to be executed. It can include one or more expressions, and I'll be talking about expressions and related topics as we progress through the course. What we've typed above is a command to print some information to the screen using syntax provided by the Java language. We specified what we wanted Java to print in the parentheses and double quotes. In this case, the text "Hello World." Effectively, we're telling Java to print out the words as we've specified them in the quotes, "Hello World." After we press the enter key, the program executing the code should print that text to the screen. In this case, the output is printed on the very next line. And there you have it. We've executed our first line of Java code successfully, printing out "Hello World" to the screen. I hope you can feel that moment of satisfaction I always feel at this moment, knowing that your system is ready and able to execute whatever new commands you can now learn, and you're at the beginning of a fun and interesting journey, getting a computing device to do what you want it to do. Don't forget that Java is a write once run anywhere, and that this little program you've created can be executed on any device where Java runs. Now I've got a bit of a challenge for you here, and the challenge is to see whether you can modify the statement we typed below so that instead of it printing out "Hello World," it prints "Hello Tim." Looking at this code, how do you think you go about achieving that? Let's see if you can figure that out and get that to run. You have a few options here. You could just retype the entire line in from scratch with the changed text to print out. But we want to modify the statement, not type a new line in. To modify the existing line, press the up arrow key. Remember that in JShell, you can see the history of the lines you've previously typed using the up and down arrows. Pressing the up arrow now will display the code we first typed in, so make the change and then press enter to see the result printed to the screen. Click pause on the video now and try that out, and I'll see you when you get back. Welcome back. Hopefully you managed to make that first change. Let's go ahead and modify the code to change the output. All we need to do is to press the up arrow key to display the previously typed in code. Then I'm going to delete the word world. And to make sure that it's grammatically correct, I'm going to use a comma, then a space, and then Tim. With the statement modified, we can press enter. There's the output, hello Tim. This is another point of confirmation for a lot of programmers when you make your first change to a line of code and you get to personalize hello world to whatever you want. Congratulations if you managed to make that work. These are the first steps almost all programmers make in almost every programming language, regardless of their experience. If you had a problem getting it to work, don't worry, the more you work at this course, the easier things will be to understand, so hang in there. Every video builds on some content in previous videos, and you'll have lots of opportunities to explore these concepts further, so you won't be left behind. Next, let's look at some common errors you might get when typing in Java code. We'll start with what happens if you forget to add the closing parentheses. I'll press the up arrow key to scroll through the JShell history and I'll find the previous line we typed in. Next, I'll remove the closing parentheses to see what JShell does. Okay, so what does this somewhat weird looking new prompt mean? Well, JShell is assuming we haven't finished typing in all of the code since we haven't closed the parentheses set, so it waits for us to type something in. I can now go ahead and add the closing parentheses here in this line and the semicolon completing the statement, then press enter. And then we have it. It now prints out hello Tim as before. Another common mistake is when you forget the closing double quote, so let me press the up arrow again, then remove the closing double quote after Tim. Here, you can see that JShell was a little less friendly and didn't give us a chance to end the text properly as it did with the closing parentheses, but gave us an error and closed string literal. If you're new to programming, that error probably doesn't mean anything, but text specified in double quotes is called a string literal, and we'll learn about literals in an upcoming video, but what JShell is trying to tell us is that we started out defining a string literal, which is what you do when you use a double quote, but we didn't finish the job correctly. We didn't add a trailing double quote, which is why we get this error. I'll again press the up arrow key and add the double quote back in, properly closing our string literal, the text, hello Tim. The error has been resolved now, and we get the output, hello Tim. I want to show you one more common error before we move on to the next video. If you're coming from other programming languages such as Python or JavaScript, replacing double quotes with single quotes is perfectly fine, but in Java, you'll end up getting an error. I'm going to replace the double quotes with single quotes to see what happens. You can see here that the error is similar to what we got when we forgot the trailing double quote, but now the error message is warning us about something called a character literal. Once again, character literals will be covered in a future video, but essentially what it's saying is that single quotes are used for characters and we're trying to use it as a string literal, which is not allowed. I'll change that back now just so it's correct. These were a few examples of errors that might occur when you're coding in JShell. Let me encourage you to play with this line of code in JShell in as many ways as you can think of to see what kind of errors you might get or what kind of output is produced. This is the whole point of JShell, to provide you with a safe place to test code segments. Remember that the key combination Control-C should cancel what you are in the middle of and get you back to the JShell prompt. Typing / and the word exit or / with the shortcut text EX will end your JShell session if you get stuck. Alright, so well done. You've successfully executed your first program in Java and maybe even made some mistakes you've learned from. Let's now move on to the next video.